Welcome to Kids Explain Bible. My name is Lauren Diki. You can call me Dick there.
My name is Logan Louie. You can call me Lala.
Today we will talk about Judson. Before we present you Adoniram Judson, who is this guy?
Do you recognize this gentleman? I hope you do. His name is Adoniram Judson. Judson translated Bible into Burmese.
Judson was the first foreign missionary from the United States. He was pioneer to the Burmese people and translator of the whole Bible into Burmese.
On February 19, 1812, Mr. Judson and his wife sailed to India from Salem, Massachusetts. This couple knew that the ticket to Burma was one way, not coming back to the United States.
In 2018, Mars One will go to Mars on one-way ticket. So what is the big deal?
Mars? Wish I could board that Mars one. Just kidding. People going to Mars are equipped with advanced technology. They are prepared to be on Mars. But Mr. and Miss Judson did not have advanced technology to see their loved ones. They did not have airplanes or speedboats. They went fully expecting never to see Americans again.
Adoniram Judson and Anne Hasland left to Burma just after they got married on February 5, 1812.
They got married and left to Burma?
Yes, Lala. They left to Burma via India after they got married. She was a 21-year-old girl. Adoniram Judson was a 24-year-old gentleman. They were very young, but they dedicated their lives to God.
We will talk about his journey later. The Judsons arrived in Burma in July 1813. When he arrived in Burma, he and his wife were welcomed with tropical disease and tyrannical king, who was brutal to missionary and non-Buddhists in Burma.
Without the help of God, the Judsons might have left Burma. On the way to Burma from India, Mrs. Judson gave birth to her first baby, who soon died, and they had to bury the baby at the sea.
I feel sorry for the baby. The firstborn child did not have a grave. The vast ocean was his grave.
On their arrival in Burma, Mr. and Mrs. Judson lived in mission compound in Rangoon. At that time, Rangoon was not the capital. The country capital was Ava, where the king lived.
There was no religious tolerance. The king was so brutal, he did not allow anyone to convert to other religion. Although they lived in Rangoon, the city was filled with garbage.
In the night, the dogs and pigs would fight over the garbage littered throughout the city. Although they had suffered too much, they looked forward. They trusted God and kept working for the God.
Judson learned Burmese in Anna built school for the natives. After he learned Burmese, Judson wrote a book on grammar and Burmese English dictionary.
After he was fluent in Burmese, Judson built Zayat on the roadside. Zayat was a hut with about 30 foot frontage, raised on posts about 4 feet above ground level.
Using the Zayak, Judson started his evangelical work. However, the God was not on his side. God did not grant him any convert until 1819. In fact, the first missionary arrived in Burma in 1807.
In 1819, God gave him the first Christian. Mong Dao was baptized. In the same year, 2 more Burmese were baptized. It must be very difficult to have new Christian at that time.
That's right. Many locals were afraid to come to Judson's Zayak. The king was intolerant to freedom of religions. Some Burmese wanted to convert to Christian, but they were afraid of the king and the local rulers.
There is no rule of laws. The words of the kings and rulers are the laws of the land. In order to get favor from the king, Mr. Judson took a boat up the river Irrawaddy to Ava. The river craft measured 40 by 6 feet. Mr. Judson took 15 people along with him. Although Mr. Judson could meet the king, he did not get what he wanted. The king did not give him permission to teach Christianity in Burma. In fact, the king had hated missionaries.
When Mr. Judson returned to Yangon, Miss Anna Judson was ill. She was sent away to America for medical treatment. However, God blessed Mr. Judson with arrivals of missionary Dr. Jonathan Price and his wife.
Dr. Price was very good in his medical field. Soon, the king at Ava wanted Dr. Price to see him. Taking the opportunity, Mr. Judson and Dr. Price went to see the king at Ava. However, Mr. Judson could not gain the favor of the king.
Mr. Judson and the king did not become friends, but Mr. Judson became a friend of the king's sister and her husband. In fact, Mr. Judson had a chance to preach the words of God in the king's courtroom.
Mr. Judson wrote this in his diary, quote, "The emperor inquired about the Burmese who had embraced my religion," unquote. The king asked Judson, quote, "Are they really Burmese? Do they dress like other Burmese?"
When Mr. Judson mentioned to the king that he preached every Sunday, the king was surprised. Then the king ordered Mr. Judson to rehearse the preaching in his courtroom.
The friendly environment for Mr. Judson did not last for long. After Miss Ann Judson returned from America, Mr. and Mrs. Judson moved to Ava.
On June 8, 1824, Mr. Judson was arrested violently and dragged to prison. The reason? 5,000 British troops had attacked and captured Yangon. Mr. Judson had received money through a British bank in India.
The prison was called the Death Prison. 100 prisoners were crammed into one room without windows. Many of the prisoners were murderers. Mr. Judson thought that he could be executed. The prisoners were not fed properly.
They were not fed? How did Mr. Judson survive without proper dietary?
Mr. Judson and Dr. Price would never be survived without attention from Mrs. Ann Judson. She spent her time providing food and attending to his needs.
Mr. Judson was transferred to Onglea. When he was a prisoner at Onglea, Mr. Judson managed to rent a small room from one of the jailers. When Mr. Judson was in prison, Miss Anna Judson had a baby named Maria. She was also inflicted with cerebral meningitis. She was unable to feed little Maria. Dicta, please read Miss Anna Judson's description of her illness.
My fever raged violently, and without intermission, I began to think of settling my worldly affairs and of committing my dear little Maria to take care of a Portuguese woman. I lost my reason and was insensible to all around me. At this dreadful period, Dr. Price was released from prison, and hearing my illness, obtained permission to come and see me. He has since told me that my situation was the most distressing he had ever witnessed, and my situation was and that he did not think I should survive for many hours. My head was shaved, my head and feet covered with blisters. I was, in fact, so far gone that the Burmese neighbors who had come in to see me expire and said, quote, "She's dead, and if the King of Angels should come in, he should not recover her," unquote.
Anna Judson was the only white woman in Ava who was not imprisoned.
With different kinds of illnesses, Ann Judson died on October 24, 1826, and Maria on April 24, 1827. Mrs. Ann Judson was not yet 37 when she died. Little Maria and her mother were buried side by side.
In grieving his wife and daughter, little Maria, Mr. Judson gave up all activities. He lived in a bamboo hut in jungle. He spent 40 days in seclusion, eating only small rations of rice.
God did not abandon Mr. Judson. In 1827, Mr. Judson began preaching to Karen. Karen people were sold in market as slaves. Some native Christian bought these Karen people and brought them to Mr. Judson for teaching the words of God.
Judson developed a serious lung disease. On April 12, 1850, Judson died at the age of 61 on the ship in the Bay of Bengal. He was buried in the sea. It means there is no grave. Bay of Bengal was his grave. We talked too much on the life of Mr. and Miss Judson. Let's focus on his accomplishment. Judson completed translation of the grammatical notice of the Burman language in 1817. In July the same year, he completed the translation of Gospel of Matthew in Burmese.
The first believer was baptized in 1819. By 1822, there were 18 believers. It took 6 years to have one believer. However, he was a good learner. He could translate English into Burmese within 5 years.
In 1817, Judson printed Gospel of Matthew in Burmese.
When Judson began his missions in Burma, he set a goal of translating the Bible and founding a church of 100 members before his death. When he died, he left the Bible, 100 churches, and over 8,000 believers.
Judson also translated and compiled Burmese English dictionary. Each July, Baptist churches in Burma celebrate Judson Day.
We won't be able to explain all the works he has done for us. This is a short description of his life.
Thank you, Mr. and Miss Judson.
Thank you for watching the Kids Explain Bible. Please share with your friends and family. Oh yeah, please do not forget to subscribe it because we are trying to have one video every 2 weeks. Thank you. Bye-bye.